You know you're living in a weird time and a distorted phase of the culture when you can see in the media all kinds of people bashing FBI whistleblowers. I mean, did you think you'd live to see this? You'd have FBI whistleblowers who are telling what's going on the inside of this top police agency. And the media is beating up not on the FBI, but on the whistleblowers. Wow. So we've come a long way since the 1960s when there were all these left-wing investigations of the FBI, of the CIA. Whistleblowers were hailed as heroes. They were brought forward. They were treated as truth tellers, which in many cases, of course, they are. And I want to focus on one of those FBI, a real hero, but someone who's not getting the hero's treatment. So this is a guy named Steve Friend. He's an FBI special agent. And this guy noticed that something funny was going on in the FBI. I mean, he could see it in the cases that he dealt with directly. He's a 12-year veteran of the FBI. He's a SWAT team member. And he has been suspended, stripped of his gun and badge, escorted out of the FBI office in Daytona Beach for what? Basically for blowing the whistle on the FBI. Now, let's look at why Steve Friend is taking such a risk. He's taking a risk of basically blowing up his career, a career that has meant a lot to him. He's the father of 2 small children. And as I mentioned, he's been over a decade with the FBI. So why would he do that? Well, the reason he's doing it is because he is showing, giving direct first-hand information about how this agency has gone rogue, how the agency has become part of the bad guys, if you will, and not to be trusted. This is very important, not to be trusted. Now, this fellow Friend makes the point that he didn't vote for Trump. He's not speaking out as a Trump supporter, but he's speaking out as somebody who has seen what the FBI has become and what it's doing. Multiple violations, as he puts it, of FBI policy. First of all, he says he has been removed from a number of active investigations into child sex trafficking and human trafficking to work on January 6th. He says that he was told by the higher-ups, we're not so worried about the child trafficking and the human trafficking. Domestic terrorism is a bigger priority January 6th. So think about it. Guys, many of them peaceful, who went into the Capitol because the door was open and nobody said anything otherwise. These have become the real threat, not the human trafficker. So Steve Friend is blowing the whistle on this. Think of how huge this is and how important this information is to Republicans, particularly if Republicans take the House and or the Senate. They can and need to go nuts over all this. Number 2. Steve Friend points out that the FBI is playing games in order to try to show that domestic terrorism is a problem nationwide. They're not treating the 800 January 6 cases as all in D.C. Because if they're all in D.C., people would think, well, whatever you think of January 6th, that was one event. That was an event that occurred, well, as it turns out now, a year and a half ago, in one place, maybe motivated by the passion of the time. But no, what the FBI is doing is they are decentralizing all the cases to make it look like some guy who was involved in January 6th from Ohio. Oh, domestic terrorism in Ohio. There's some other guy who was involved in January 6th from Montana. Domestic terrorism in Montana. They're trying to make it look like there is an upsurge of domestic terrorism all over the country because there are, insurgents over here and insurgents over there, even though they're talking all about the same singular event. So this is a kind of FBI disguise of the way that their cases are organized to make it look, to give the false impression to the public and to also plant in the media, which is all too willing to brazenly lie, that this is somehow a nationwide problem that they're dealing with. He also points out, Steve Friend does, that the FBI has ordered its officials to go and visit, which is to say bang on the doors of people who were in Washington, D.C. on January 6th, but didn't go into the Capitol. were not in any restricted property. In other words, were acting completely lawfully and within their First Amendment rights. And the idea is not that the FBI has the authority to arrest them, because arrest them for what? But harass them. Go to their homes, start asking them questions, scare them, scare their wives, scare their kids. And so there is underway on the part of the FBI, according to Steve Friend, an active operation to sort of bully Trump supporters. And again, I want to make it clear, these aren't even Trump supporters that entered the restricted precincts of the Capitol. We're talking about people who are merely in D.C. And finally, Steve Friend points out that the FBI, in a very sneaky move, has taken an area of the Capitol that was not previously considered to be restricted and extended the boundary of, quote, restricted space. So anyone who's in that area, who is actually lawful, is nevertheless now counted as someone who is in restricted areas. So this is the point. The FBI is trying to widen the net. It's almost like, you have a bank and you have an area that is considered the property of the bank. You're not supposed to be within that property. Somebody's not in that property, but you know what? Let's draw a wider circumference and include them. So it now seems like they are on restricted territory. So this is just very bad stuff. And this is also, by the way, retroactively changing what is said to be restricted so you can go after people who are actually not acting unlawfully at all. So these whistleblowers are vital to getting information on the FBI, but getting information is only the first step. The Republican goal should be really clear, and that is not reform, but dismantle, take down, bring to the ground the FBI as an institution. If it needs to be rebuilt, if is the question, it can be rebuilt separately from the ground up.